Everybody, thanks for watching. This is probably going to be the best video I've done so far. This is probably going to be my favorite video because in this video, I'm going to reveal to you the system. I'm going to show you what the system is. Now, we have come to call the system the white man. So whenever it's a problem in black society, whenever we relate to our struggles as a people, we always say, well, the white man this, the white man that. Well, the white man got us. What exactly is the white man? What exactly is the system? Now, I'm going to be showing you what that is and how deep it is. See, because we talk about it, we relate to it, but nobody goes into detail about how deep this system is and how it has been designed to destroy us, how it has been designed to control us. I understand this is a very long video and we all have better things to do than to sit down and watch long videos on YouTube. I understand this, but you have to understand that they know that we as a people are chronic procrastinators. They understand that if we don't see an immediate threat, we're not going to heed the warning. If we don't see something making us money immediately, we're not going to deal with it. They understand this about us. So if the white man don't care about us and we don't care, then what's going to happen to us? What's going to happen to our future? What's going to happen to our children's future? We have to be able to take the time to get this information and to understand what's being done to us. We got to make sacrifices. We don't want to make sacrifices. This is why nothing changes. But I understand we all have important things to do, so I will be breaking this video up in 2 parts as well as putting it up in its entirety. But understand, our enemy is decades ahead of us in their plans to keep us oppressed. So if we can't take 3 hours out of our busy day or 3 hours out of our busy week to understand how and what exactly they are doing to keep us oppressed, then we will stay oppressed. Now, before I go any further in this video, let me say this first. This is not a blame the white man for all the black man's problems. This is not that kind of video. I think one of the things you're going to come away with in this video is one of the reasons why we are where we are today as a people is because of lack of knowledge, lack of awareness. We're not aware of this system. We understand that it's something in place that is like hindering us, but we tend to point the blame at each other instead of really digging into this system that is in place to keep us down. And it is a very sophisticated system. So we're going to get into hip hop. We're going to get into popular culture. We're going to get into a lot of things that black people like to do, because we have to realize that they take away everything that will help us as a people. So we really got to pay attention. We really got to look closer at the things they let us keep. We really got to start doing that because it's a reason why they let us keep certain things. So we're definitely going to get into hip hop. We're definitely going to get into the fashion. We're going to get into some of the trends. We're going to get into a lot of things that black people follow today. I don't want you to get offended. I don't want you to think that, this is just somebody out here with an agenda trying to do something. Really pay attention because they've hidden things so well. They are very good at this. They've been doing this for years. They have hidden things so well, and they have put, meanings out there that make sense. And you would look at certain things and it would make so much sense to you. You have no clue that it was designed that way to basically blind you from something else. So I'm going to be showing you things like this in this video. And as I said, I don't want anybody to get too offended. I don't want to hinder anybody from seeing this video in its entirety because this is a very important video. Now, one of the things we're going to run into as we go along in this video is people going to have the question of why. See, if you can't get your head around the why, you're not going to understand, or you're not going to really accept the information in this video because your whole thinking is going to be, well, why would they do that? Well, why would they do that? Well, that don't make sense because you don't understand the why. The why is very important, but the why will have to come later on because it's just too much to explain why. And one of the problems is most of us black people, we don't know our history before slavery. We don't know where we come from. We don't know what has been going on this planet before slavery. You go to school and they tell you that black people we have our exception in this country, well, in America, with slavery. But we don't know what happened before that, and it's a lot of research you will have to go through to understand what's going on. Some of the people watching know exactly what I'm talking about. Some people may not. But that's why I have to show you proof. Now, some people will disagree with some of the things I'm going to say, which is why I have to show proof. But we have to come to the agreement that something is obviously wrong. We can all agree that there is something in place that is keeping the black person, the black man and black woman, from reaching the point of success that we should be at this point in our life. Some of us, we can see exactly what that is, but we don't know the details behind it. That's what this video will show. It will get really deep into the details, and I'm not going to, talk too much. I've been building it up for like 7 minutes now, so I'm going to get right into the information. But I know the big question on a lot of your mind is why? Why would they do that? Well, this is all some bullshit. But I promise you, by the end of this video, you're going to come out with a better understanding of the why, and the main thing you're going to come out with is why things are the way that they are. Okay, slavery. So since most black people only know about our inception in America from slavery, then I have to start with slavery, because slavery is a big part of it. Now, if a white person tell you, man, y'all need to get over slavery, it was so long ago, get over slavery, you tell them to tell their people to give back every dollar, every bit of wealth and success that they reap from the benefits of slavery, then we'll get over it. Because the reason why we cannot get over slavery is because we know deep down in our head that the reason we are where we are at today as a people has its inception in slavery. It's because of slavery, and that is the truth. So what has never happened was nobody has not outlined how that was possible. People have spoken on it. People have said things and written poems about it, but nobody has went into detail about how slavery is the root reason for everything. So I have to start with the beginning. So please bear with me, because this is deep. You have to really pay attention. Now, you have to think about slavery. Now, if slavery was just about getting black people to do your work and getting black people to, take care of your kids and, plow and make you money. If it was just about that, then the psychological aspects of slavery wouldn't have been implemented. The psychological things that was done to the slaves would not have been done if it was just about using slave labor to make the white man rich. So if it wasn't about making the white people rich, what was it about? Because you really have to think about it and remember that slavery started with the Arabs. So you got to ask yourself, what is it about black people that they know about us that we don't know about ourselves? See, it has something to do with the unity of black people, and that being very powerful. The Bible actually speaks to it. Now, if you saw one of my earlier videos, I did a whole part where I took the book of Genesis, chapter 11, verses 1 through 9, and I took it back to its original Hebrew language. And I showed you, once you take the Bible back to its original language, it changes. The meanings change and the stories change. Now, what I did in these particular verses was I showed you that what Genesis 11, 1 through 9 is actually talking about is about black people. That whole thing is about us. It's talking about a people who was united. They were so powerful. Now, Genesis chapter 11, starting at 6, it says, "And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do." That is powerful. 7 says, "Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city." Think about that. "Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth." Now you have to think about it. It says that these people were of one speech, one language. It does not say that these people was evil. So why would God go down there and change their language and spread them about? Why would he do that? If these people were so united, it doesn't say in the verse that they were doing anything evil. It said that they were united Why would he go down there and spread them? Now, when I translated this back into Hebrew, it says something completely different. And there are other places in the Bible where it's speaking about the power of African people, how powerful we are when we unite. Here's another example.
According to Nahum chapter 3 and verse 9, he says that the people from Ethiopia and Egypt had a power that was boundless, limitless, without limit. And that was written in 714 BC, right around the same time that Isaiah 18 was written. So what we're dealing with here is that we're dealing with a group of people, black people from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, that were basically presidents of the planet, if you will. People who were in world domination. So on one hand, slave trade. On the other hand, we have the tremendous civilization that black people had created.
There was a definite crisis of the conscience, because there were white brothers really intensely fighting this thing called slavery, and they were pushing for the liberation of the black man, condemning the trade itself, and freeing slaves in America, and they were torn. And so you can see where the impetus and the need to formulate rationalizations for this developed.
What to do? What are the anthropologists and archaeologists going to do in dealing with this information? And that is what I believe, what sponsored, maybe consciously in some cases, unconsciously in other cases, what we could call the cover-up. The cover-up of the accomplishments of black people. Chancellor Williams wrote a book called The Destruction of Black Civilization. And in this book, he outlines 7 points as to why he feels that there was a cover-up.
Ignore. Just refuse to publish any facts of African history that don't go along with our racial theories.
We need to create a religious and a scientific doctrine so that African slavery won't appear that bad after all.
What we need to do is flood the world with new African histories that contain our European perspectives only.
Start renaming people and places. Replace African names with Arabic and European names. This will disguise their true black identity.
Let's change the criteria for defining race. For example, 1 drop of Negro blood in America makes you a Negro, no matter how light the skin.
Yes, when reporting ancient African history, reverse the standard. No matter how dark the skin, woolly the hair, or thick the lips, you don't have to be a Negro.
When black contribution to civilization is too obvious, let's find a way to attribute it to outside white influences.
When all the ancient historians contradict your theory, we'll just discredit them.
So, as you can see, there is something about black people, or something about us that they know about us that we don't know about ourselves. The ancient Egyptians knew what that was. They knew we were different. They knew we were special. So, of course, in the 1400s, during the Arab slave trade, they castrated us. They took our language. They indoctrinated us into Islam. And we still flourished as people. They don't tell you about the Songhai people. They don't tell you about how good these people was. You don't know about Sunni Ali, and how Sunni Ali was a very smart, powerful man down and with the Songhai Empire. Sunni Ali was not really a Muslim. He did not really follow Islam the way he was supposed to, but yet the Songhai people still flourished. Now, when he died, his son did not assume the throne because he didn't want to convert to Islam. So this is all around the time of the Arab conquest. This is around the time when the Arabs were very powerful and Islam was spreading. And a lot of African kings was converting to Islam for political purposes. Mansa Musa, who was considered the richest man of all times, a black man, he was one of them. He converted to Islam. But Sunni Ali, his son, did not want to convert to Islam. I guess he wanted to be more like his father. So Askia Muhammad, or Askia the Great, he took over, and the Songhai people were very powerful. And in 1591, they were taken over because they were very powerful. These people had colleges, they had a whole system, they had a political system, they had a legal system, they had lawyers. They were very powerful black people because they were united. And They seen that these black people were very powerful. They were smart with trade. They were smart with agriculture. They were smart in mathematics and everything. And these people were becoming powerful. So in 1591, it was a war. Now, most of the slaves that came over to America came from the Songhai Empire. So I want you to take a look at this and look at Dr. what's his name? Edward Robinson is his name. He's 93 at this time. He's talking about what was going on around this time. Take a look and listen to what he had to say.
Well, first I want to say something to the ladies in the audience. I want you ladies to understand that African women, and you're the genetic reproductions of our mother, were considered the most beautiful women on the planet for thousands of years by all of the civilized people of the world. The Greeks thought so much of your beauty that they named 2 star constellations after you, Andromeda and Cassiopeia, the two most beautiful star constellations that are in the heaven. They say that they have all of the beauty of the setting sun, hair which is alive, and a figure incomparable even today. So I don't want you to think that just because we went through 400 years of horror where they were saying you were ugly, that you believe that, because you're the most beautiful people. Well, you are imitated by everybody. So I want to say that before we get on to the discussion. I hate to ask this question because it's embarrassing. How many of you who are African Americans, how many of you know the African city and country from which your ancestors were born? Except my daughter.
Not one hand went up.
Not one hand went up. I asked this question of 500 whites. How many of you know the city and country? I was teaching at a university, a white university, just outside Philadelphia. Every hand went up. They knew not only the country from which they came, not only the city, but the borough from which their ancestors came. Now, how come they know and none of you know? Here's the reason. And here's the reason why I am different. The reason is that these South Carolina and North Carolina plantation owners went to Germany to find out how they could control our fathers and mothers on the plantation, because they were getting out of hand. They were burning the houses down, they were killing white folks. They were doing everything negative about being in captivity. They were never slaves. They were prisoners of war, the War of 1591. So what happened was they sought the advice of an expert in Songhai history. Now, his name was Johann Blumenbach, and he was the head of the Department of History at the University of Göttingen in Germany. How many of you know this? I know you was taught this in college and everything, all you college folks. Well, when they sought his advice, they said, do they know that they're the Songhai people? So the plantation owners who traveled over there to seek his advice said, well, of course they know that they come from the great Songhai Empire. Well, that's your problem. You can't let them know that they came from greatness, from grandeur, from beauty, from sophistication. You'll never be able to control them. So the plantation owners said, well, how can we prevent it? I mean, the mothers and the fathers would tell the children, say, you came from Timbuktu and you came from the city of Jané and that's where we were born. And then the Europeans came over and invaded us in 1591 and marched us to the seas, to the waiting ship. Said, man, you can't allow them to teach that to their children. They said, well, how are you going to stop it? Here's how you do it. Here's why you don't know where you're from. Blumenbach said, what you do, as soon as a boatload arrives, take the babies out the mama's arms. Send the parents to a distant plantation and work them to death and raise the children to believe that they came from a jungle. They won't know the difference.
That's right.
How would they know?
That's right.
Their parents are gone. Yeah, now, here's the difference between me and you. When they captured my grandmother, I'm not going through, you heard the beginning of the story. My grandfather was a lawyer and a sculptor in Benin City, Nigeria. And the English kept on coming over stealing his sculpture.
Wow.
Some of his sculpture ended up at the art museum in West Philadelphia, where they came to show it off because it was world-class sculpture.
So have you been able to see this sculpture?
Oh, sure.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got some in the book. But anyhow, what happened was his wife hassled him and said, don't fight the English when they come over, just let them have the sculpture. I'm pregnant, and they'll kill you. Then I'll be a widow, and they'll put me on board ship and take me over there where they're taking all the rest of those prisoners of war. But my grandfather, whose name was Mwale, said, I'm fighting them. I'm not going to let them steal my sculpture anymore. And he gathered some of his fellow sculptors, and they fought the English when they came over to steal. They always stealing something. And they killed him, killed my grandfather, and put his wife, his pregnant wife, my great-great-great-grandmother on board the ship. And the ship was named Jesus, by the way. That's deep. I've been angry ever since. Well, at Jesus, I mean, not at Jesus, but and on the way over, the baby was born.
Wow.
All right, name of Diane. She named Diane. Now, it was bound for South Carolina. How many of your ancestors came from South Carolina? Raise your hand.
Oh boy.
A whole bunch of folks. They were bound for South Carolina. But in 1808, this was 1813, in 1808, a law was passed by Congress forbidding more importations of the Songhai people. We're the Songhai people.
Right.
See, Blumenbach said, don't allow them to even learn that they came from the Songhai Empire.
Right. We're going to try to breed them here on this continent rather than continuing the cultural memory.
They don't even let them learn the name Songhai. Because then they'll start investigating. Then take away their ability to read and write, pass laws against them learning to read and write. Then they can't learn anything about the Songhai Empire. They passed a law, 200 years, a law not allowing blacks to learn to read and write. Well, anyhow, in 1808, this law was passed forbidding any more importations of the Songhai people. Now, nobody paid any attention to that law at all except one little group called abolitionists. Now, the abolitionists put their money together and they bought a ship. And they patrolled the seas looking for prisoner of war ships, what you all were trained to say slave ships. They weren't no slave ships, they were prisoner of war ships.
Very important.
Were coming, very important distinction.
That's right.
And when we teach our children, they were never slaves.
That's
they
right.
were children, descendants of prisoners of war. Like McLean, he was a prisoner of war.
That's right.
He wasn't a slave.
That's right.
He got captured by the enemy.
That's right.
On the way, this abolitionist ship captured the ship that my great-great-grandmother was on. So instead of this baby being taken from her arms in South Carolina, the ship was towed to Trenton, New Jersey. And of course, Nzinga, who was the baby's mother, my great-great-great-grandmother, taught the baby that her father was a world-class sculptor, that her father was a lawyer, that he went to world-class universities. So I was trained from babyhood, you know, that we've got to right this wrong.
That's right. That's right.
So I was, you know, it's your job, because you were spared by just an act of God, an act of the ancestors, to not let the baby being taken from Nzinga's arms. And the baby grew up, and she had a child. Her name is Mary Diane Thomas. And she was my great-grandmother. And she helped raise me.
Wow.
And so she told me the story when I was a kid, you see. So that's how I know
wow.
where we're from.
Wow.
That's right.
She was saying the black woman was worshipped as gods, goddesses. White people worship black women as goddesses. So did the ancient Egyptians. Now, it's not saying that the black man wasn't considered God. It's just saying the black woman was being worshipped as God because, of course, men, we come from women. You can't get a woman from a man. You can't get a man from a man, but you can get a man and a woman from a woman. But one of the things he's speaking to, he's showing you how they went to such lengths to separate black people from their origins, from their knowledge. Separate the babies from their moms so they don't know where they come from, so they don't know about their history. So if it was about money, as I was saying before, if it was about money, why would they go through all of that to keep these people from knowing who they are? So if you are conscious as a white person or as an Arab or whoever, if you are conscious to the fact that when black people unite, when they completely unite, when they are educated, when they have knowledge of self, when they unite, they become unstoppable. If you are conscious of that, you have to do everything in your power to stop them from uniting. And these were some of the things they were doing. Now, we all heard about the Willie Lynch letter. If you don't know about the Willie Lynch letter, I'll let Denzel explain it.
I'll take the affirmative. Take the meanest, most restless nigger. Strip him of his clothes in front of the remaining male niggers, female niggers, and nigger infants. Tar and feather him. Tie each leg to a horse facing in opposite direction, set him on fire, and beat both horses until they tear him apart in front of the male, female, and nigger infants. Bullwhip and beat the remaining nigger males within an inch of their life. Do not kill them, but put the fear of God in them, for they can be useful for future breeding. Anybody know who Willie Lynch was? Anybody? Raise your hand. No one? He was a vicious slave owner in the West Indies. The slave masters in the colony of Virginia were having trouble controlling their slaves, so they sent for Mr. Lynch to teach them his methods. The word lynching came from his last name. His methods were very simple, but they were diabolical. Keep the slave physically strong, but psychologically weak and dependent on the slave master. Keep the body, take the mind. I and every other professor on this campus are here to help you to find, take back, and keep your righteous mind. Because obviously you have lost it.
The Willie Lynch letter in The Making of a Slave on page 16, as it relates to the breaking process of the African woman. It says, then take the female. Run a series of tests on her to see if she will submit to your desires willingly. Test her in every way, because she is the most important factor for good economics. If she shows any sign of resistance in submitting completely to your will, do not hesitate to use the bullwhip on her to extract the last bit of bitch out of her. Mm-hmm. Take care not to kill her, for in doing so, you spoil good economics. When in complete submission, we should underline that, when in complete submission, not submission to Jesus, not submission to Allah, not submission to the deities and the Creator, but when she's in complete submission, she will train her offspring in the early years to submit to labor when they become of age. Understanding is the best thing. Therefore, we shall go deeper into the area of the subject matter concerning what we have produced here in this breaking process of the female nigger. We have reversed the relationships. I'm going to say that one more again. We have reversed the relationships. In her natural uncivilized state, she would have strong dependency on the uncivilized nigger male, and she would have a limited protective tendency toward her independent male offspring and would raise the female offspring to be dependent like her. Nature had provided for this type of balance. It's underlined here. It says, we reverse nature by burning and pulling one civilized nigger apart and bullwhipping the other to the point of death. All in her presence. So it says, by her being left alone, unprotected, with the male image destroyed, the ordeal caused her to move from her psychological dependent state to a frozen independent state. In this frozen psychological state of independence, she will raise her male and female offspring in reverse roles. Getting back to the Willie Lynch letter, it says, full fear of the young male's life, she will psychologically train him to be mentally weak and dependent, but physically strong. So you got these burly buff brothers, but they're psychologically weak. It says, what have we got here? You've got the nigger woman out front and the man behind and scared. Right. This is a perfect situation for sound sleep and economics.
Right.
Just before the breaking process, we had to be alertly on guard at all times. Now we can sleep soundly from out of frozen fear. His woman stands guard for us. So now the black woman is standing guard for the white devils who actually put this plan in place. It says he cannot get past her infant slave process. He is a good tool now ready to be tied to a horse at a tender age. By the time a nigger boy reaches the age of 16, he is soundly broken. Continually, through the breaking of the uncivilized savage niggers, by throwing the nigger female savage into a frozen psychological state of independence, by killing of the protective male image, by creating a submissive, dependent mind of the nigger male savage, we have created an orbiting cycle that turns in its own axis forever. Unless a phenomenon occurs and the reshifts of the positions of the female savages are to take place, we show what we mean by an example. Take the case of the two economic slave units and examine them closely, and that's going into another section in the book.
So, as I was saying, if it was all about enslaving black people, if this was a normal thing, because I keep hearing this so much from black people actually say this, and other white people say it too. Oh, well, black people wasn't the only people who was enslaved. But was the other races who was enslaved, was they so psychologically programmed? Was they so damaged? Was their culture, was their language, was their history taken from them? Why was this done to black people? You got to really think about this. So if it was all about just making them rich, making them money, why all the psychological games? Because see, this thing was really about programming. Money was just a plus, but it was about reprogramming a people. Now, if it was all about the premise that they give black people and white people too, by them saying that, oh, black people, the Africans, they were savages. They were killing themselves. They were harming themselves. We came over there and we're trying to basically sophisticate them. We're trying to bring them over here. And because the Bible says, or they throw religion in there and they say, oh, the Bible says that these people are supposed to be our slaves, or these people are savages and God made them. God says they're supposed to be slaves and serve the white man. All the bullshit reasons that they gave. They gave a lot of reasons. Now, some of you may have heard of the slave narratives. The slave narratives are in the Library of Congress, which is crazy to me. And they are basically over 2,000 accounts of black people from all over the U.S., former slaves, and their accounts of what they went through during slavery. Now, HBO did a special about this whole thing. Now, one of the reasons why I'm bringing this up, and one of the reasons why I brought the Bible into it, it's because I want to show you. First of all, you have Johann Gutenberg, the printing press. The first book he printed was the Bible. It was in the 1400s. I think it was around 1490 when the book was printed. Then, right after that, right during the same time, you have the transatlantic slave trade going on, and you have Africans coming into America. You have the Bible coming to America in 1611, and the King James Version being printed and going out to America. All this is going on around the same time frame. So you have the King James Bible arriving in America. You got 1591, the whole transatlantic slave trade is going on. You got these new slaves coming in from Africa to America. Boom. You have the Bible, you have indoctrination. So, one of the reasons why I'm bringing in the slave narratives is because one of the accounts, or a lot of the accounts of the slaves, when they are talking about going to church, they're telling you that the white people was telling them that they were the saviors of black people, that the white man came and saved the black people from savagery, from a life of sin. I want you to take a look at one of the slaves talking about this.
Okay. The first enslaved people in America were reluctant to accept the religion of their masters, but during the 19th century, thousands of slaves began turning to Christianity. They infused this adopted religion with a new spirituality and with African traditions. Many owners hoped that Christianity might make their slaves more docile and encourage them to convert.
On Sundays, niggas had to sit and listen to the white man's sermon. Obey your master, be good servant. Can't tell you how many times I done heard that text preached on. They tell the slave that if he be good, work hard for his master, that he would go to heaven and that he gonna live a life of ease. They ain't never tell him he gonna be free in heaven.
Well, you know what was the first stealing done? It was in Africa, when the white folks stole the niggas just like you'd go get a drove of horses and sell them. But since the Lord saved me from a life of sin, I don't think about them things.
Okay, so obviously, the first slaves that came to America was not Christians. Obviously, before the Songhai Empire became great, the Africans was not originally Muslim. They both got their religions during the slave trade. The sub-Saharan slave trade brought about Islam to the African people, and the transatlantic slave trade brought about Christianity to the African people. So of course, when the first Africans came to America, they was against the Christianity. They was against the religion, as she alluded to. Now, once they was beaten and, killed and, had the religion forced upon them, they later converted, obviously. And as the generations passed, it just was normal. It was normal later on. After 100, 200 years passed, Christianity was normal. And the black people began to just think it was something that was real. It was forced upon them. So what they don't talk about is the lies. The lies that were told, because of course, a lot of white people was not for slavery, which is why the South had slavery and the North didn't, because a lot of civilized white people was not buying into that whole thing. They wasn't for slavery. So some of the lies that was told to the people in the South and to everybody was black people descended from monkeys and we had the blood of rabbits, and all kinds of sick things was told to make the people not look at us as humans. Now, also, our past was being destroyed. Our past was being wiped away. So if you go research ancient Egyptian civilization, if you go research Nile Valley civilization, you'll see that we come from a great people. You see, from what we do know, what we can find out, we know that we come from a great civilization. We know that ancient Egypt was probably the greatest civilization of all time, and that is documented. There's nothing written about more than ancient Egypt. That's a fact. Now, we also know when when Alexander the Great, once they took over Egypt, we know during the Ptolemaic era that once they got all our sacred papyri, once they got everything that we wrote on that was sacred, all of our knowledge, they got all our scrolls and they put it all in the Alexandria library. And we know that library was burnt to the ground, therefore burning all our proof, all of our sacred documents, everything that we held dear, everything that we knew was on those papyri, and they burned it to the ground. Now, me personally, I think they got all the information out before they burned it to the ground, but we can't prove that. But as you can see, they've been covering up our past, trying to erase it. We also know that once the pyramids, once ancient Egypt became unburied from the sand, because it had been buried in the sand for hundreds of years, and we know around the 1800s, 1800s, when it was being uncovered, that they was going in and they was chiseling all the noses off of the statues. They was trying to do everything to not show that ancient Egypt was black.